Namaskar friends. On the 60th anniversary of the 1965 Indo-Pak War, let's take a look at why Pakistan provoked it, how it unfolded and what were its consequences. Did Pakistan repeat the unlearned lessons during Operation Sindoor? I am Tilak Divesha and you are watching The Great Game Reloaded. September 1965, Pakistan thought it had India cornered. Its generals were confident, its foreign minister was ambitious, and its president believed that he could redraw the map of South Asia. Behind the bravado was the reality of misreading the situation in India, grave miscalculations, myths, and massive propaganda. To understand the war of 1965, you have to go back to 1963. In Srinagar, riots broke out when a holy relic, the Prophet's hair, was stolen from the Hazratbal Mosque. The relic was later recovered, but the unrest gave Pakistan an idea. Add to this the death of India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, in May 1964. India's towering leader was gone. In an article after Nehru's death, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto wrote, and I quote, "How long will the memory of a dead Nehru inspire his countrymen to keep alive a polyglot India, the vast land of mysterious and frightening contradictions, darned together by the finest of threads? The key to Indian unity and greatness has not been handed over to any individual. It has been burnt away with Nehru's dead body." Unquote. Nehru's successor, Lal Bahadur Shastri, was dismissed as weak, soft, and indecisive. Pakistan's generals even called him, and I quote, "that little man Shastri," unquote. Pakistan believed its army was superior. It interpreted the results of the India-China War of 1962 as India being weak and ineffectual. In April 1965, Pakistan greatly exaggerated its military success in the Rann of Kutch. As a result, a false sense of optimism and superiority was engendered within the Pakistan army concerning its ability to fight a war against India. This cocktail of arrogance and misinformation set the stage for war. Bhutto especially was convinced that the internal situation in Kashmir was ripe for provoking an open revolt against India. He felt that if the evolving situation was channeled into an insurrection, it would force the Indian government to reconsider its frozen position on the Kashmir issue and allow the possibility of a plebiscite. Bhutto wrote to Ayub on 12th May 1965, recommending, and I quote, "a bold and courageous stand," unquote, that would, quote, "open up greater possibility of a negotiated settlement," unquote. He also linked Kashmir with Pakistan's raison d'etre. Quote, "Kashmir must be liberated if it is to have its full meaning," he wrote. At a top-level meeting held at Murree on 13th May 1965, the plans for launching Operation Gibraltar to inject infiltrators into Kashmir to incite a popular rising against India, and Operation Grand Slam, a supplementary operation to capture Akhnur to choke off the supply lines to Kashmir, were finalized. What seems to have carried the day at Murree was the assurance of the Foreign Office that India's retaliation would be limited to the territorial limits of Kashmir. The clinching argument was Bhutto's written assurance to Ayub a day before this meeting, advising him that India was, quote, "at present in no position to risk a general war of unlimited duration for the annihilation of Pakistan," unquote. The plan was simple on paper. Send thousands of armed infiltrators into Jammu and Kashmir, spark a local uprising, choke Indian supply lines by capturing Akhnur, force New Delhi to the negotiating table. But there were two fatal assumptions. One, Kashmiris would rise in revolt at the sight of Pakistani infiltrators. Two, India would not dare cross the international border. Both were proved to be wrong. The initial infiltration started on 28th July 1965 and the main infiltration took place on 5th August 1965 all along the 750-kilometer ceasefire line. The main body was to converge on Srinagar with the aim of proclaiming its takeover on 9th August 1965. On 8th of August 1965, however, All India Radio broadcast the confessions of captured Pakistani infiltrators. The entire operation was exposed. Kashmiris did not revolt. Instead, they tipped off Indian forces, and Operation Gibraltar collapsed before it could even begin. Even though Operation Gibraltar had floundered, it was decided to launch the supplementary Operation Grand Slam to cut off India's only road link to Kashmir, starve 5 Indian divisions of supplies. On 1st September 1965, Pakistani troops stormed Indian positions at Cham. By 2nd September, they were just 6 miles short of Akhnur. The momentum of the offensive had carried the Pakistani troops to the banks of the Tavi River, and just 6 miles short of Akhnur, the key point of the whole operation. Jaurian stood between the Pakistan Army and Akhnur. Success was within reach. And then something bizarre happened. Ayub Khan abruptly changed commanders mid-battle. General Akhtar Malik, GOC 12 Div, was replaced with General Yahya Khan. Originally, Jaurian was to be bypassed and a quick attack launched against Akhnur. However, Yahya Khan changed the original plan and instead of bypassing Jaurian, decided to capture it first before moving towards Akhnur. This change in command and plans cost Pakistan 36 hours, critical time that allowed India to regroup. Jaurian fell to Pakistan on 4th September, but by then, the momentum of Operation Grand Slam was lost. India regrouped and Pakistan's best chance at victory vanished in 36 hours. Meanwhile, at 5:30 a.m. on 6 September 1965, Indian troops crossed the international border and advanced towards Lahore. The move shocked Pakistan. Why? Because its leaders had convinced themselves that India won't dare cross the international border. Lahore was practically undefended. Its garrison was busy hosting a football tournament. The Pakistan Army was in peacetime deployment along the Lahore-India border. There was only a single company of the 3rd Baloch Regiment on duty at the border. Soldiers were doing morning exercises when Indian tanks rolled in. Pakistan was rattled. The war was no longer about Kashmir, it was about survival. Pakistan's response was Operation Mailed Fist, sending its prized 1st Armored Division into Indian Punjab on 7 September. Their goal? Capture Amritsar. Their confidence? Sky high. Pakistani generals were already planning civil administration for Indian Punjab. But in the Battle of Khemkaran, sugarcane fields and flooded canals stopped them. Indian anti-tank units ambushed the armour. Pakistan's grand advance turned into a humiliating retreat. Pakistan's gamble failed. Its myth of military superiority was shattered. Ayub Khan's credibility was destroyed. Pakistan Air Force Chief Noor Khan was frank enough to call the 1965 war an unnecessary war. He made the important point that, quote, since the 1965 war was based on a big lie and was presented to the nation as a great victory, the army came to believe its own fiction and has since then used Ayub as its role model and therefore continued to fight unwanted wars. The 1971 war and the Kargil fiasco in 1999, he said. In each of the subsequent wars, we have committed the same mistakes that we committed in 1965, unquote. He could well have added Pahalgam if he were alive. Then, as now, Pakistan had more successes on the propaganda front, or so it thought. In Pakistan, newspapers declared, our patterns will stroll into Delhi. Radio Pakistan spoke of crushing victories that the Army and Air Force were inflicting on the Indian forces. The people were told India was on its knees and created the illusion that Pakistani forces were actually poised for major advances. All this is reminiscent of Pakistan propaganda on 7th May 2025 of shooting down Indian fighter planes. Pak propaganda, then as now, was divorced from reality and was to boomerang severely. For example, it was not surprising that the Tashkent Declaration seemed like an inexplicable surrender. The dilemma for Ayub at Tashkent was that the hype that had been created by Pakistani propaganda meant that anything short of Indian concessions on Kashmir would be seen as a defeat. All that the Tashkent Agreement mentioned was agreement or disengagement, and this clearly was not enough, primarily due to the propaganda. Pak propaganda during Operation Sindoor has met the same fate. The Pak public has been shocked to learn from the foreign minister that it had sought a ceasefire due to the devastation caused by Indian strikes. What happened to all the victories that the government had claimed during the engagement? A bizarre aspect of the whole 1965 fiasco was that soon after the war, the General Headquarters ordered all units to destroy the respective war diaries that contained first-hand source material about the war at the ground level. This ensured that no lessons were learnt from the war. A similar exercise was carried out in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Quite likely, this was the result of a deliberate effort to conceal the actions of those who had something to hide. We may learn in a few years about a similar exercise carried out after Operation Sindoor. By mid-September, Ayub was putting out feelers to President Johnson to lend his good offices for both countries to stand down. This is what a Pakistani Prime Minister would do 34 years later in the wake of the Kargil intrusions and again during Operation Sindoor. When Ayub visited Washington in December 1965, prior to Tashkent, President Lyndon Johnson unequivocally told him that the US could not influence India on Kashmir and advised Ayub to, quote-unquote, get it out of your system. Looks like this is another lesson unlearnt by the current Pak leadership. Interestingly, during the Tashkent summit on 8th January, Uzbek artists entertained the two delegations to a musical performance. Premier Kosygin sat between Ayub and Shastri. The performances included several Urdu and Hindi songs. The most popular one that drew huge applause was the Hindi song, "Main kya karu Ram mujhe buddha mil gaya." Oh God, I've got hitched to an old man, from the hit movie Sangam. Tashkent was soon to become an abusive word in Pakistan, used by anti-Ayub politicians to embarrass the government. Bhutto himself started the practice when he began a movement against Ayub of hinting about a Tashkent secret, that is a secret deal between Ayub Khan and the Soviets in which Kashmir had been sold out. That would be revealed at the proper time. That proper time never came, and Bhutto forgot all about it once the purpose of discrediting Ayub was served. Thank you for watching. Do like, share and comment. See you soon with another episode. Till next time, I am Tilak Divesha. Namaskar and Jai Hind.